Chapter 4. The boy I'd spotted was so small I nearly lost him in the frantic churn of the crowd. He trudged along a well-worn, muddy track, hauling an empty wicker basket that seemed to fight him with every step. He was making for the mountain looming in the distance, the basket bouncing over stones and deep ruts, jerking his thin arms with every jolt. I took a heavy step to follow, but the village seemed to claw at me from both sides. To my left, where the canvas tent sagged under the weight of the gray drizzle, a voice tore through the heavy air, raw, jagged, and thick with a panic that felt far too real. "Help! Please! Someone! I need more bandages!" From my right, up on the wooden palisade wall, another shout snapped out. "Help! I'm pinned! Get this thing off me!" Every nerve screamed that I should run to the loudest crisis, the biggest fire. That's what heroes did, right? I wasn't that guy. I was the hold the bag during Christmas shopping guy, the call someone qualified guy. My real-life emergency experience began and ended with paper cuts. Now, actual disasters were unfolding in front of me, and all I could do was stand there, heart racing, trying not to completely fall apart. And out of all those sounds, the one that hooked deepest was the quietest, the soft, stubborn grunt of a kid still dragging an oversized basket through the mud. Kurt had made that sound, straining under a school bag that weighed half as much as he did, insisting he could manage, that he didn't need help. I'd still end up eventually helping him. I couldn't help myself. "Hey," I called, already moving. "Wait up!" The boy glanced back, startled. The basket snagged on a rock and lurched sideways. He yelped and stumbled as the sudden stop tugged him off balance. I broke into an awkward jog and reached the small boy just in time, my broad, soot-stained hand closing around the far handle before the basket could pull him down into the slurry. "I've got this side," I said. The boy stopped and stared right at me, his eyes wide under a fringe of damp, matted hair. His clothes were far too thin for the biting wind and several sizes too large. The sleeves rolled and re-rolled into thick, soggy cuffs. For a moment, the tension in his small shoulders eased. A flicker of genuine thankfulness crossed his face, and a hint of a smile flashed there, before he quickly masked it with a more serious look. "You're not from the village," he said. It was a flat observation, a statement of fact rather than a question. "New arrival," I admitted, trying to keep my expression gentle. "Thought I'd help out before anyone realized I have no idea what I'm doing." That earned a second, more lingering ghost of a smile from the boy. He glanced at the empty basket, then back toward the mountain looming in the distance. "I have to get to the mine," he said, his voice small but determined. "The smithies are running low on coal for the forge. They can't fix the shields and weapons without it." He said it so simply, as if hauling fuel during a siege was just another chore assigned between school and dinner. "I'll help," I said, giving a firm nod toward the basket. Inwardly, I was more than happy to agree. The mine was exactly where I'd been hoping to go anyway. I reached down and lifted my side of the basket. To my new, powerful frame, it felt like nothing, just an awkwardly oversized bit of wicker. As we started walking, I couldn't help but keep looking down at the boy out of a growing sense of concern. He was so small. His thin, soaked clothes made me ache with a sudden, sharp worry. The wind was biting, and he looked like he was barely holding on, yet he kept moving with a grim kind of determination. My gaze lingered on him for a heartbeat too long, and, just like it had earlier when I was staring at the village headman, the system responded. Without any warning, a nameplate just popped into existence above the boy. Tob, Village Apprentice, Child, HP 87%. I realized then it was a mechanic, my own personal inspect skill. It wasn't a button I had to find or a menu I had to open. It was triggered by nothing more than a lingering stare. If I focused on something long enough, the game rewarded my curiosity with information. It was a strange, silent power, and a sharp reminder that behind the smell of rain and the weight of this world, there was a computer system, a game. But it felt right to ask the boy for his name anyway. "What's your name, kid?" I asked. And with a thick accent I couldn't place, he said, "Tob, short for Tobian, but everyone calls me Tob." "I'm Lukas, short for also Lukas." That actually dragged a small snort out of him. Up close, he really was far too young to be anywhere near a siege. 10? 11? Old enough to understand what was happening, too young to have any business being part of it. "Shouldn't you be somewhere safer than this?" I asked. "There isn't anywhere safe," Tob said factually. "If the forge runs out of ore, we have no more weapons. Then the walls come down. Then—" Tob trailed off and swallowed. "The village goes next." Something in my chest twisted. For a second, it wasn't an NPC talking. It was a kid who'd been handed way too much fear and not enough childhood. This world was already pulling at my heartstrings to the point I almost had the thought to just turn the game off right then and there. But we trudged on together, the sounds of the walls slowly dulling behind us, replaced by the steady clack of stones against the basket. The drizzle turned the ground to a slick paste under our boots. Twice Tob slipped and caught himself. "Where are your parents?" I asked before I could stop myself.
"Dad's in the mine," Tob said. "Ma's in the tents. She's good with bandages." "Right," I said quietly. "So you're helping?" "I can't fight," he said, "but I can carry. I'm not a baby." Brave, I thought. I could clearly see he was scared, but trying to help anyway. We kept going, dragging the basket until the mine's entrance loomed ahead, a dark opening cut into the mountain rock, shored up with thick timbers, a pair of lanterns on hooks at either side. 2 men stood near the entrance, spears in hand, mud up to their knees. Their faces were set in the same tired lines I'd seen all over the village. One of them spotted us and straightened. "Tob, back again already? You'll wear a groove in the path at this rate." Tob puffed up a little at that. "Dad said getting ore to the smithy was important, so I'm doing my best." The guard's gaze slid to me, taking in my cleaner clothes, my uncertain grip on the basket, the fact that I didn't quite look like I belonged. "This one with you?" he asked Tob. "He helped me carry. He wants to help." The man's eyes lingered a moment longer. "All right, hurry along." Then he gave a short nod and stepped aside. We hauled the basket through the entrance. The air changed almost immediately. Outside, everything had been wet and sharp. Smoke, rain, sweat, fear. Inside, the air turned cooler and heavier, pressed close by rock and stale breath. The sounds softened to echoes, the distant ring of metal on stone, low voices, the occasional grunt. My eyes adjusted slowly to the dim light of scattered lamps. The tunnel sloped downward at a gentle angle, walls roughly carved, floor worn smooth by years of boots. Men and women moved in the half-light, faces blackened with grime. Some chipped at the walls, sending chips and dust raining down into baskets. Others sorted through piles of broken rock, pulling out the pieces with visible veins of metal and tossing the rest aside. No one looked heroic down here. They just worked, hard, quiet, relentless. "This way," Tob said, tugging the basket toward a low pile of freshly broken stone near the tunnel mouth. We set it down. Tob wiped an arm across his forehead, leaving a new streak of mud above his eyebrow. "Dad says we take from the front piles first," Tob said, pointing. "The deep teams bring it up. I'm not allowed lower than the lamp line unless an adult's with me." "Lamp line?" I asked. He pointed again. Farther down the tunnel, the lamps thinned out, the last one hanging crookedly from a nail in the wall. Beyond that point, the passage vanished into black. "Only teams go past there," Tob said quietly, "for the good ore." As if summoned by the words, a faint rumble rolled up from the depths, low, drawn out, like the mountain shifting in its sleep. A dusting of grit sifted down from the ceiling beams. A few miners paused, glancing toward the darkness, then went back to their work with grim determination. My skin prickled. "Does that happen often?" I asked. Tob shrugged one thin shoulder. "Sometimes," he said. "Dad says the mountain talks. It's nothing." He said nothing, like someone repeating what they'd been told, not what they believed. "Right," I murmured. "Nothing." We knelt beside the pile and started to work. It was simple enough. Pick a chunk, turn it in your hands, look for the dull, promising gleam of metal. Keep those, toss the rest. The rocks were cold and rough, leaving grit on my palms. Tob moved faster, but sloppier, grabbing anything that looked heavy enough to matter. I nudged a few of the worst pieces aside when he wasn't looking, so he wouldn't carry any unnecessary weight. We fell into a rhythm. He picked, I sorted. We stacked pieces into the basket until it was half full, then 2/3, then close to what I'd call comfortably full for a small child to drag. "You know," I said, trying for lightness, "where I'm from, kids your age help by taking the rubbish out or stacking the dishwasher, not with helping a war effort." He frowned slightly. Another small snort, another tiny flash of Kurt rolling his eyes at one of my jokes and secretly enjoying it. Tob started dragging the basket to a new pile. I stopped him. "That's enough," I said. "You'll break in half if we pile any more in." "But the forge—" "We'll be getting ore," I said. "Look at it. That's a good load. You did well." Another miner trudged past us, hauling a smaller basket up toward the surface. He looked like he could barely stand upright under the weight. His face was gray with exhaustion. "The veins are drying up," the man muttered to no one in particular. "We'll have to push deeper into the mine soon, or start stripping the roofs for scrap." He disappeared up the slope. I glanced down the tunnel toward the last lamp. The darkness beyond it felt thick, waiting. There was more ore down there, better ore if the rumors were right. More metal meant more weapons. More weapons meant maybe fewer kids dragging baskets through the mud while men on the wall screamed for help.
This was a game, I reminded myself. There would be patterns, secrets, higher yield veins conveniently placed where idiots like me could find if we were curious enough or stupid enough to try. Another rumble shuddered through the stone, closer this time. The lamps swayed on their hooks. Somewhere deeper, I thought I heard a long, low grind, like two boulders scraping against each other. "Don't go down there," Tob said suddenly. He had been watching me, looking at the lamp line. His face had gone a shade paler under the grime. "We don't go deeper if we can help it," Tob said, his voice dropping to a whisper that barely carried over the sounds of the miners around us. He shifted his grip on the wicker basket, his knuckles turning white against the wood. "There are things down there, old things." He looked toward the darkness where the lamp line ended, his eyes darting as if expecting something to crawl out of the shadows. "The stories say an old king of rock is trapped down there, bound by powerful mages from a time long before the village was ever built. He's supposed to be asleep, locked away in the deep earth where the light can't reach him." Tob trailed off, a shiver running through his small, soaked frame. "But sometimes, when the mine is quiet, we can hear him through the stone. It's a rhythmic hammering, steady and deep, like a heartbeat made of iron. And then the mountain groans, like the earth itself is straining to hold him in." "Dad says that's just fear in your own head, but he still doesn't go alone." Smart man, your dad, I thought. I glanced from Tob to the tunnel and back. Every instinct I had was split in two. The parent part wanted to grab this kid, march him back up to the surface, and barricade him in the least flammable building in the village. The curious, newly minted player part wanted to see what the game thought was important enough to put at the end of that ominous darkness. Both parts agreed on one thing: Tob didn't belong in the deep tunnels. "All right," I said, crouching so I was closer to Tob's eye level. "Listen, you take this basket up, Straight to the forge. No stopping, no detours, and don't come back to the mine. Go help your mother. I'll get more ore. I have a feeling it's about to get very dangerous. Got it?" He scowled, but it was a fragile sort of scowl, more hurt pride than real anger. "I just want to—" Tob started to say. "I know," I said. "You're trying to help. You already are. Look at that basket. That's more than some grown men could carry. You've done enough for one trip." He looked down at it, shoulders sinking a little, then squaring again. "What about you? Are you going back to the village?" I glanced once more toward the darkness. "I'll be out soon. Go on, take the ore, stay near people. I'll come find you topside when I'm done, all right?" He didn't move. "Tob," I said more firmly now, "they need you up there. I'll be fine." He searched my face for a moment, as if weighing whether he could trust a stranger who'd just dropped out of nowhere. Finally, he gave a short, reluctant nod. "First forge, then I'll help Ma in the tents. She always needs more hands." "Good," I said. "Go." Tob just nodded, as serious as any adult, and started up the tunnel. I watched him go until the curve of the passage and the dim light swallowed him up. "Stay safe," I added. The words slipped out before I could stop them, the exact same way I'd said it to Kurt 100 times as he'd headed out the front door to school when he was younger. The mine felt quieter without the boy beside me. The distant clang of tools and the murmur of voices seemed to pull back, leaving a pocket of stillness around me. Another faint tremor rolled up the mine, shaking more dust loose. "Okay," I told myself, my voice sounding a lot less brave than I'd hoped in the damp silence. "It's just a game, just a bunch of ones and zeros masquerading as a dark hole. There are no creepy crawlies down there, unless, of course, the developers decided that creepy crawlies were a core part of the user experience. It's a fantasy RPG. There's probably a whole department dedicated to ghosts, monsters, and whatever other nightmare fuel they can cram into a dark corner just to see if a grown man will squeal like a toddler." "I'm sure it's fine," I added, though my heart was currently trying to beat its way out of my chest. "At most, I'll just have a heart attack. Besides, the darkness couldn't actually hurt me, right? Well, if I was being honest, I didn't actually know that. I could feel the world around me with startling clarity, the grit on the handle of the basket, the chill of the damp air on my skin. If something did jump out of the shadows, how much pain would I actually feel? This was a game teens played, after all. Surely there was a legal limit to how much agony you could inflict on a demographic that mostly lived on energy drinks and spite. It couldn't be too bad. At worst, it'd probably feel like a nasty static shock or a badly stubbed toe. Of course, a stubbed toe in the middle of a pitch-black mine is exactly the kind of immersion I could do without. But I hadn't come here, to this world, not to go deeper. If there was something down there that could help these people hold on a little longer, then I had to at least look. I took a breath, tasting stone and dust and the faint metallic tang of whatever they're dragging out of the mountain. Then I turned my back on the light of the entrance and started down the mine, one careful step at a time, into the deeper dark.